Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to the SLLS meeting. This is the 139th meeting. As you can see, we progressed from 2009 onwards with some very interesting topics to discuss. And Ashok, you can see from the random selection of past speakers that you have joined a very select panel of people. Our last meeting was on the 19th of April, and our speaker was Dr. Dilojan de Alvis, and he spoke on the rise and fall of the naked ape. And today, on the 5th of July 2026, ladies and gentlemen, we are very proud to and honored to present Ashok Ferrey, the best-selling Sri Lankan author of literary and satirical fiction, known for his witty, sharply observed social comedies that explore the absurdities of Colombo society, the immigrant experience of the West, and the hugely complex psyche of modern Sri Lankans. That was well-deserved applause. He is the winner of the prestigious Gratian Prize in 2021 and also nominated for many other literary awards, as you can see. The format of today's meeting is that after my brief introduction, I will start talking to Ashok in the form of a Q&A, covering his work, his thoughts, and his inspirations. And then we will spend some time discussing his book, Hot Butter Cuttlefish. He will also very happily give some advice about budding authors on writing a novel and how to get it published. And we'll end up with a Q&A until we run out of time, or if you are fast, but don't fast, eat as much as you like, and do run out if you had enough. And here's a slide showing the covers of his books that have been published. And I shall now end the PowerPoint presentation and start chatting to Ashok. But just before I do that, here is a special view of Ashok as a native rather than a Kalasudra. You know what to do, Ane? Have to dress properly sometimes, no? As we lost some of the recordings, I'm just going to recapitulate what we asked Ashok. I asked him to give a brief account of his life story and how he came to writing books, and how he moved from Sri Lanka to Somalia, to England, and then back to Sri Lanka. Okay, over to you now.
I've got to go. And I made it just before my 31st birthday, 2 months before my 31st birthday. So I was technically still on a technicality. I was still within my promise to myself that I went home at the age of 30. And then the strangest thing happened. I came back in July 88. By September, the market in London had peaked. By December, it had crashed. Then all my friends who gone into the conversion business said, how did you know? Well, the thing is, I didn't know. It was complete luck. Or there's somebody up there pulling strings. One or other, take your pick. Then in Sri Lanka, I started designing and building houses. That came to a very nasty and unpleasant end because I got harassed by Inland Revenue for something that I know was legal, but somebody didn't like me. They wrote pessimers. That's an art form, by the way, in Sri Lanka. I read somewhere that in Venice, in the 17th century, people did the same thing, but it exists today. Anyway, I have to thank the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue. One of these days, I'll take him a bottle of wine and knock on his door, because one door closes and another one opens. I became a writer. There was also another circumstantial piece of evidence there. My father was dying of cancer, and it was a very, very stressful time for me. My sister was in London. My brother was in New York. I was the only one in Sri Lanka to look after him. We Sri Lankans, we've all been through this. We are all about to go through it. So this is nothing new to us, where we have an elderly parent or an elderly sibling or whatever that we have to look after. And very, very harrowing. Nobody prepares you for it. Nobody tells you how bad life can become.
Yeah.
So cut a long story short, I take my father to Maharagama in a tuk because my car was an old banger, it wouldn't work. Bring him back, and the poor man was a bag of bones shaking around in the tuk-tuk. I put him on the bed in the guest bedroom, and I go into my son's room, and I pick up a Rahima's exercise book and a pencil. And the very first story of my life just poured out of me. Short story, it's called The Perfect House. It's in my first book called Pretty People. But you know the really funny part, Mahen, is this, that it's a funny story. It's about a tenant who doesn't pay rent. It has nothing to do with cancer or death or anything, you know? So it just shows how the human mind works. On the one hand, I am dying of misery and sheer anxiety and worry. And then I'm writing this ha-ha, he story. So, I mean, it's something I'd advise all of you. If you have any kind of writing inclinations to write, pick up a pencil or sit at the computer, write some nonsense. You'll be surprised how far it goes. You know, because I know it happened to me.
So, listening to you, was there something inside you always who desire to write or to put something in a meaningful way?
No, not at all. That's the funny part. In the 8 years that I was a builder from 1980 to 1988, I didn't write a single thing. I didn't read a single thing because builders don't read. You go home, you're dead tired, you fall asleep in front of the TV. That was my life.
Oh.
So, you know, prior to coming back, I did read. Of course, once I came back, I joined the British Council, got my statutory 2 books for every 2 weeks, and I started reading.
Yeah.
But to this day, I don't have an education in literature. So when I go to these posh literary festivals and they start talking about, oh, Dostoevsky, oh, Tolstoy, I remember, I sit there cringing like a Mia because I haven't read most of these things.
Right.
So there again, you know, you don't have to be a great reader to be a writer. Writing is an expression of your soul.
Yeah.
So you really don't need in fact, I would go so far as to say that sometimes if you read too much, it's the enemy of your own creativity because you're always looking over your shoulder at other people's much greater works, do you know? And they are greater, let's face it. No, we can't all be great writers. We just manage with what we write.
Mhm.
But if you read too much, you're always afraid and you'll never put pen to paper because you think, oh, how can I write like Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or Somerset Maugham or whoever? So
After your traumatic experience, you sat down and wrote how you felt about your father and all that. And then, but from there to publish it as a novel, that's a big step.
yeah, but one little correction. It took me 20 years to write about my father. It
Oh,
was so harrowing. So it only turns up in The Unmanageable Man. That is the story of my father,
right,
you know, and his death. But that took 20 years.
right.
So he actually died in the year 2000, and that was written. It won the Gratian in 2024, I think, or 23, I can't remember. But so it was 20 years later. In the meantime, I was writing funny books and all sorts of other books. So there again, it takes a while for things to distill in your brain and come out. I think it was so traumatic that I really couldn't deal with it before then.
So
And the funny thing is, once you do write it,
yeah,
it's like a ghost that you lay to rest.
Yeah.
And you feel a great sense of relief,
yeah,
as if somebody has walked out of the room, you
right,
know?
right. So looking back, I don't think you can imagine yourself being a scholar in mathematics at Oxford. At that stage, I just guess that writing or becoming a writer was not even a dream or not even in your mind about writing books and so on.
It
So
wasn't
when
on the
you
radar.
when
It
you're doing
wasn't on the radar.
mathematics, what sort of idea did you have about your future direction? So can't be a builder because you don't do mathematics.
No, that was also the random part. I was going to be an actuary.
Yeah.
That was my chosen profession because if you're a mathematician, you can either be a teacher, and I was bloody awful as a teacher. In my gap year, I taught in Nigeria, in
Yeah.
West Africa, where my father was working,
Yeah.
and I was a terrible teacher. So that only left one other option. This is working in an insurance company as an actuary. It was a hugely well-paid job those days. There were only 50 actuaries in the UK. There was only one in Sri Lanka who was a friend of my father's. So he was very keen that I become an actuary. But I interned at the Commercial Union, that was an insurance company in London in the 70s and 80s. And it was a really dull job. I thought to myself, I'll kill myself. I'll shoot myself if I have to live the rest of my life doing this. But I love mathematics. That's the funny thing. The maths I did was, it wasn't related to actuarial science or statistics, essentially. It was more pure maths about points and lines and dimensions. So it's imaginary maths, if you like. I mean, I've coined that phrase, it doesn't exist, but it is truly imaginary maths. So you do work in the fourth or fifth or sixth dimension, and the mathematics works. Okay. But if I go any further, you will all switch off and go home. Because whenever I say this, there's a glazed look that comes over people's eyes. But if you have enough imagination, you can think that maybe those worlds also exist. Who are we to imagine that life stops in the third dimension? Who are we?
Yeah.
Why are we so arrogant to think that the world begins and ends with us?
Yeah.
It's not long ago when we thought that the sun went round the earth, that we were the center of the earth.
Yeah.
So I'll stop right there, because that's you really will switch off, because I begin to sound like a crackpot. But actually, as a mathematician, there's no reason to suppose those worlds don't exist.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. So that's the background. Well, I read in another interview that you had conducted, you describe yourself as a failed builder, indifferent mathematician, barman, and personal trainer to the rich and infamous.
Yeah, it's true. I am all those things. Guilty as charged. I have all those things.
And in another interview, you said about becoming a writer, which only goes to show that if this idiot can do it, any idiot can.
Yeah, and again, that's the truth. That I would urge each and every one of you, if I can do it, and I'm a random kind of dude sort of stepping off the street who never read much anyway, who ends up writing books, why the hell can't you?
Yeah.
Do you know? It's actually, I think what stops us all is a lack of courage.
Right.
That first word on that first page. I wouldn't have written. My wife has an aunt, Carmen de Souza, who bullied me. She actually bullied me for about 2, 3 years. She'd heard that I was writing. She bullied me and said, "You need to put these books into the Gratian. You need to put these stories, collect them together, put them into the Gratian prize competition."
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. There were a couple of times when I saw her at Food City in the supermarket, and I would dive into the next aisle. I knew she'd come up to me and start harassing me. Do you know? But thanks to her, I collected it and I put it in that collection. It didn't win, but it got shortlisted. And then suddenly your world changes. You think, oh, well, maybe people are quite interested in what I write.
So is it just lack of courage, or put it another way?
I think so. I think we all have this desire and ability to express ourselves, particularly Sri Lankans.
Right.
Because we're all mad. We're stark raving loony. When I go to England, I see how sane people are.
Yeah.
Do you know? Come back here and it's just loony. I write these books and everyone says, well, this can't be true. Surely this can't be true. You've made this up. You have such a fertile imagination. Well, the truth is I don't make it up. These are all real life. Of course, I mix the people around because they'll come and kill me. Even the current book, which is about an old man falling in love with a very young girl, 33 years his junior. It's a true story. They're alive and well. I won't say anything more because they will kill me. But the fact is that this kind of loony life, we live here, and it's wonderful as an artist living in Sri Lanka. There's so much inspiration. Actually, I kid you not. Many of my foreign writer friends, Shyam Salvadore, and so on, they come to Sri Lanka and they base their books here. They get their inspiration here. And then they go back to Canada or New York or whatever, and they write their books. But the life is here. That kind of that mad, random, weird life. I don't know how to describe it. That richness, but richness in not always in a good way, in quite a bad way sometimes. It's like a layer cake where one layer has worms crawling in, and then you thankfully go to the next layer, which has the strawberries and cream. But everything is there. So am I being too harsh?
Are you correct in sort of generalizing to say that's a Sri Lankan thing, or is it certain types of groups of social class of Sri Lankans who?
No, I don't think it's certain types, because now the new book, Hot Butter Cuttlefish, is set in a village. I won't tell you where, but it's a real life village, and I spent a lot of time there with my friend, who is the one who's the hero of the book, sort of thing, the protagonist. And what I found was It's the same life, because you can take the Sri Lankan out of the city and put him in the village, or vice versa. It's the same thing. So the beauty of Colombo is that it is actually an enlarged village.
Yeah.
And Savitri, who's here, I'm sure will tell you that Kandy is even more of a village than Colombo is. So although we have 1 million people or whatever it is we have, everybody is connected to each other. There's only a 1 or 2 degrees of separation. We don't get this in other cities in the world.
Yeah.
It
Right.
doesn't exist, I don't think. Maybe somewhere in South America, I don't know.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't exist in India, I know that. I know Mumbai is very close, but right at the top is very close. But the rest of Mumbai is so huge that you can be anonymous. In Sri Lanka, you can't be anonymous. Everybody will know you, and if they don't know you, they will make up a story about you. They'll make up the backstory. So it's frequently better to come prepared with a backstory.
Well, I don't know enough cultures to debate the question with you.
Yeah, I grew up on these 3 continents, so I sort of like,
So you have direct
but it is anecdotal. I don't have any real evidence. But now I know Chimamande Adichie, the Nigerian writer. She said a similar thing about Lagos. I mean, she writes in New York, but she said the life is in Lagos. So I go back for so many months to Lagos. Then I take the material back and write in New York.
Yeah.
So maybe there are other cultures also which have the same thing. But the rationality is in the West, but the vibrancy is in the home country. I don't know.
Okay. Now, this is a bit naughty of me. I'm going to reverse your humor. When you said that any idiot can do it, are you saying that other people are all idiots and that's why?
No, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think, again, hear me out. I could be wrong. I'm way out on a limb here. There needs to be a bit of idiocy in you. Not even idiocy, a little bit of foolishness in a good way. You need to be a fool in a good way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your greatest enemy is being too wise for your own good. If you're too wise, you'll say, how can I write? So many good people, so many better people than me are writing. People who are great at this, who've got English A level, who've got an English degree, who've got an English DPhil, they're writing. What makes you think I can write? Wrong. I think if you're a little foolish, in a nice way, it helps. But I'll put it another way. I think you've got to be really open-minded.
Yeah.
To want to write. You've got to think, okay, my life is a blank page. Let me scribble on it. And okay, it may be crap. I don't care. I'll get the crap out of my system and let somebody else be the judge of how good or valid the crap is.
Yeah.
Let other people be the judge.
In a way,
And
your word use of idiot in a way is a compliment, not.
it's absolutely a compliment. You hit the nail on the head, Mahendra. It is a compliment. There are those stories, you get them in the Middle East, the Mullah Nasruddin. In Sri Lanka, you get the Mahadana Mutta. It's the same character.
Yeah.
The wise fool.
Yeah.
Who tells the king off, or and the wisdom resides in him, not in the king.
Right.
There are cultures all over the world that have this story.
Yeah.
The Middle East has it with the mullah. Same thing. It's a figure of fun.
Yeah, I follow.
But it's an idiot saying wise things.
Okay, now slightly turning the conversation around to a slightly different aspect. You are now an author, a personal trainer. You went from match to builder to author and again to personal trainer. Do you believe in destiny? Is this predestined? Is it karma using one of your...
Very, very good question. Very good question. In fact, this new book deals with this. It's karma versus free will in this book. There are like 5 characters. They each deal with karma in their own way. And they interpret it in their own way. So what do? If you're blessed with good fingers to play the piano, do you play it, or do you think, no, that's not going to make me any money, I will sit and be an accountant? What do you do? It's a difficult question. Do you give free rein to your idiotic imagination, or do you go with the brain and think the brain says, I need to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant? I don't know. But all I can say is, I said this in a TED talk once, you are like a solitary man in a boat on the ocean. And you just have to trim your sails and be ready for that next gust of wind, and you don't know where it'll take you, but you just have to be kind of ready to go where the wind takes you. In other words, don't have a life that is too planned. That's also beautiful, but that's beautiful in a mathematical sort of way. Do you know, that's the predestination part. The free will part tells you, maybe my destiny is taking me in this direction. Let's just go with it for a little while. I'm not saying go with it to the ends of the earth. Go with it for a little while and see whether it suits you. And then turn back when you find it no longer suits you. The day people stop reading my books, I will stop writing, because I'll know that's it. I'm at the end of the road here. Let's be wise about this. That's it. There's only so much each person has. So so it's a combination of free will and destiny, free will and karma.
I may be wrong, Ashok, but this to me has a tinge of Cartesian determinism, that there is a path that is laid out for you. You're not quite sure what it is, but you believe that there is a path. I'm not saying that
Yes.
it is God-given or whatever it is, but
Yes.
you believe that there is a path that is there for you. Isn't that sort of believing in determinism?
It is. And time again, even in The Unmanageable Man, right at the end, the hero is standing there and he's just discovered some really shocking fact about his life. And he thinks, well, I've only discovered this now because I could not have handled it before. So in other words, that there is a certain grand plan that whoever, God, destiny, karma, whatever you like to call it, there is this design. And perhaps, just perhaps, your duty in life is to surrender with as good grace as you can muster to this design. I mean, I play with this idea quite a lot in my work. Do you know? I don't know if it's true, but time and time again, it's come true for me in certain things where I think, that's the reason I was sent in this direction. And it is not obvious at the time that you make that decision or you allow yourself to have that decision made for you. But 10 years later, you think, oh, so that's how these pieces fitted.
So just
I
to
don't know.
interrupt you there, you believe that the world is not just physicalism. There's something called spiritual or some another
No,
dimension.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't know who's to say,
Yeah,
but I think there is something out there that is
yeah,
quietly, gently pulling little strings here and there. But we have free will at the same time. We don't have to respond to the puppetry of the string.
okay,
I do think we have the free will. We can rage against it,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But perhaps sometimes there is a certain wisdom in allowing
yeah.
yourself to be blown in this direction or that. Not much, but just a little. Do you
Yeah.
know?
What I sense in you is a kind of wish for a deeper understanding and not being limited by pure science or what is known so far, that you're willing to open your mind to other things that
Yeah.
you may not understand but could be there.
Yes.
Keep an open mind.
And I think the maths has a lot to do with that, because
Yeah,
mathematics pure mathematics entertains the possibility, the multi, the millions, the myriad possibilities.
yeah,
Do you know that film Sliding Doors with Gwyneth
yeah,
Paltrow? It's
yeah,
quite an old film.
yeah.
It's that, you know, if you went in this direction, where would you have gone? So the mathematics tells you that actually those infinite number of other worlds also exist. You are just choosing one of those at any one point. You know?
Okay, so that's
So anyway, enough
really,
mumbo jumbo. We're losing audience, I can tell you.
really deep stuff. So turning to something else now, I'd just like to talk about your literary style and your influences. Your books feature a lot on Sri Lankan culture, history, social behavior, the attitudes of Sri Lankans to their former colonial masters, and sometimes, the contradictory respect they have for the English tongue and English language, and white people in general. Sometimes, එයා සුදු මහත්තයා හරි හොඳයි,
Yeah.
That's all. So can you tell us what got you to focus on this in many of your books?
In many.
And
It's almost
I must add that your books are really readable in the sense that the humor is fantastic. I can tell you straight away.
Thank you. That's for me the best praise ever. Thank you.
Yeah. So
But to
that's why I
get back,
referred to Sir Hugh Mill and Sir Tyre,
the
because
Hugh,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
that's
one
very
thing you would
witty.
have
My
thought of,
God,
not I.
you
So
should be
tell me
writing the
about
books,
your.
not me. Yeah, but to get back to that original thing. Okay, so I think I'm in that sort of strange position.
Yeah.
When I came back to Sri Lanka at the age of 30, it took me, and I can give you precisely, it took me 17 years to stop thinking in pounds and to think in rupees.
Oh.
So it's like this world turning very, very, very slowly. And 17 years later, you suddenly realize you've done a full turn, you know? Because roughly I'd spent 20 years in England prior to that. The first 8 years in Sri Lanka, 2 years in Africa, 20 years in England, and then back here. And it's only in that 17th year, suddenly I thought, oh my God, I'm thinking in rupees now. It takes that long
Yeah.
for Britain to work itself out of your system. And you guys who live in England, you're goners. You'll never change. You'll never think in rupees. You've lost the language of rupees.
Yeah.
You're in the language of pounds, sterling, and
Yeah.
pence.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so the point I'm making here is that for much of your life, when you come back, all of you, if you ever decide to come back, you will be Kalusuddas, whether however much you want to be Sri Lankan, you will not be.
Yeah.
I have resigned myself to the fact that I will never be accepted here as a proper Sinhalaya, Demalaya, whatever,
Yeah.
as a proper Sri Lanka. I will never be accepted as that. However much I try, however well I speak the languages, it just won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I see it now. I've now been back, 37 years. I can still spot any one of you on the streets and say, ha, returnee. The way returnees wear tennis shoes or trainers on the Colombo streets, or the ladies wear lovely expensive shoes, they plainly don't know how bad our pavements are. Do you know? Anyway, that's a light-hearted observation, but in general, Sri Lankans are very good with social markers. They can spot you straight away. They can pigeonhole you. One tuk-tuk ride and the tuk-tuk driver knows exactly who you are, where you come from. Do you know? They'll place you. Is
I
that a
mean,
good thing?
you spoke about rupees and pounds. I must say, whenever I go to Sri Lanka, I convert to rupees because then everything seems so cheap.
Well, that's yeah, yeah. Or you convert to pounds because it seems cheap. Is that what you mean? Or rupees? Pounds, I think I'm sure you mean.
Well, if they say you have to pay 15,000 rupees or something, oh my God, they'll
It's
say
a lot.
15,000 rupees. Now convert it to pounds, oh gosh, only.
Yeah,
Then
yeah, yeah.
it'll be
But
lovely.
but but beware. That's the biggest trap that we Sri Lankans face, because before you know it, all the rupees are gone because you think, oh, it's cheap, it's cheap, it's cheap, and then the next thing you know, you're completely bankrupt. So
Yeah.
trust me, I've been through it.
Okay.
So it's anyway, to get back to the original thing.
Yeah.
So we are all in. I said this somewhere in one of the books. You know those Veda Mahatya's chests of drawers where you have about 30 or 40 little drawers in this
Yeah.
one chest. And the Veda Mahatya kept his different churnas, his powders, whatever in those. So I think Sri Lankan society is a bit like that. We are all in one of those drawers. And people here hunger and thirst to
Yeah.
put you into one of those drawers when you arrive here. So I was a very difficult case because I would say, oh, I'm a builder. They'd think, what's that? What is a builder? Is he a boss? Is he a contractor? My mother particularly, it pained her. She would always introduce, my brother is a doctor. He did the decent thing and became a doctor in New York. So she'd always introduce him first. Oh, my son is a doctor. Then they'd say, well, what does your other son do? And then she'd mumble because it was like, it grieved her to have to introduce me as this yaka builder. So anyway, she got around it. Once I started writing books, she got a little better because then she could say, oh, my son is a writer. But that took a long time. So she had a tough life, I tell you. So to get back to that chest of drawers, everybody is in one of those drawers. And I think each of us is, now I'm being really crude here, so please forgive me. Each of us is a Suddha to a certain extent. Because as I told you before, you come back to Sri Lanka, you will never be considered Sri Lankan. Not by a native Sri Lankan who grew up, born and bred here. The moment you are tainted by being abroad, you are tainted. Tainted is the word. Yeah? They'll entertain you with good humor. They'll be happy for you. They will admire you for your money and your gentleness and your sense of justice, because you don't have the the kind of the deviousness that we Sri Lankans have here. Now here I'm putting on my Sri Lankan hat, do you know? But you will not be accepted. Don't ever imagine you will be. So I find this really strange, because the other way it works, I think, you go to England and you are accepted as an Englishman after 20, 30 years. Nobody gives a toss about your color. I don't think, again, I'm wrong. I could be wrong here, because I've never lived in England that long in my more mature years. So for me, it's kind of fascinating, this toing and froing. And there are more and more people like that. I think you guys and maybe we were perhaps not the first generation, we may have been the second or the third, but now there have been 3 or 4 generations after us. And there are Sri Lankans who've grown up in England or America who've never been to Sri Lanka, you know? But that wasn't the case in our generation. So...
Yeah, my own view, Ashok, is that this is all to do with the concept of identity, how we identify ourselves as, and how we can change according to circumstances, according to time, according to context, and according to your beliefs and so on. So identity is something that is very changeable and is very unique in a way. And it's one of the very difficult concepts of identity. What I want to ask you also is that humor and satire seems very important to you. Your books are full of it. Does that reflect your general view, attitude to life in general, or is it only in literary area that your humor and satire comes into it, or are you what I call, some people might say, a cynical person who sees the other side of things, or what?
Yeah, first of all, I try not to be cynical. I hope that the humor is fairly gentle. I hope that the humor is, I'm laughing with you rather than at you. Do you know? I hope it's that. Although quite often it is interpreted as being sheer sarcasm or cynicism, which it isn't. It would pain me to think it was just sarcasm, because that's more brutal and it's more crude. I'm hoping it's a little kind of finer than that. I don't know. But to get back to the other thing, from a technical point of view, humor is incredibly difficult to write. Any writer can make a person cry. So tragedy is very easy. It's hugely difficult to make a person laugh, because if you have to explain that joke in the next line, it is no longer a joke. It's a chemical reaction that comes out of you when you burst out laughing, because you didn't realize there was a joke that 10 seconds later you laugh because suddenly you realize it's a joke. Do you know? But woe unto you if you have to explain that joke. If people don't laugh and then you have to say, hang on a minute, chump, this is meant to be a joke. It's then not funny. Rationally you explain it, but it's not funny. So technically it's incredibly difficult to write. One comma, one false word, and you've lost the joke. Now, I didn't think I was a funny writer. When I wrote Cooperative People, that was a serious book. Those were serious stories that I put together. I know that first book was first story that I wrote while my father lay dying was about a tenant who didn't pay rent. It was funny, but I didn't intend it to be particularly funny. It was about a person struggling to make a living in Colombo where the tenant didn't pay him rent. But once the book came out, somebody stopped me on the street and said, oh, Machang, that was so funny, that book. And I was mildly annoyed. I thought, no, you're getting this wrong. It's a serious book. Then somebody else said it. Then somebody else said, oh, you know, Machang, I keep it by my bedside, and when I've had a bad day, I read 2 or 3 pages and I chuckle a bit and I go to sleep in a good mood. Then I thought, well, maybe who am I to tell you what I've written? It's your book. Once it leaves my hands, it's your book. It's no longer mine. Do you know? So then I thought, well, maybe I do write humorously. And even if there's a sting in it and there's a sort of point to it, maybe it helps that it's humorous, because then the other person can absorb it. The humor is like the pani rasa, the sweetener in the bitterness of the coffee. Do you know? It somehow brings it into focus. It makes it more palatable, but it brings it into sharper focus. And for me now, after 25 years of writing, I realize it's very important.
Would you agree or disagree with me that an author who is good at writing with humor, satire, and so on, there's a certain type of personality who can do it. Not every author who's a good author can be a good humorist. There's something within you which brings it out well. So not every
I
author can aspire to be, I'm going to be, great author on humor. I don't think you can do that. You have to
Yeah,
be a
you're
sincere
absolutely
person.
right. You're absolutely right. Because there's nothing more painful than for me to read a book by a fellow author. Sometimes I love him because they're close friends of mine. But when they're trying to be funny and it's too labored, it's too, do you know, it doesn't work. I truly believe that humor is God-given. You
Yeah,
either have it or you don't, or you have it to a certain extent, shall we say. And some people have it hugely Oscar Wilde or people are so funny, P.G. Woodhouse. I crack up still today,
yeah,
when I read those books. And it's God-given. There are so few people, so few writers who are able to sustain that throughout their life. So I 100% agree with you, Mahen, that
yeah.
it's something that if you have it,
You have
you
it.
do need to use it.
Yeah, true.
Don't stifle it.
So
Uh,
that brings me nicely to my next question, which is, are there any historical figures or novelists who influence you a lot? Because underlying your funny side, you have a very definite serious side to it also.
mm,
Sometimes
yeah.
your humor is followed by something which indicates that I said that in a funny way, but I there's something underlying that style which brings
Yeah.
out truth.
Okay. So the writers that I like are writers that no young person has ever heard of today.
Yeah,
Hopefully, you guys may have heard of these writers, but they're what I call mid-century modern writers, mid-20th century.
yeah,
So you have Graham Greene, Muriel Spark, R.K. Narayan, Evelyn Waugh. For me, I think writing achieved its highest pitch of perfection with those writers because they're all serious writers who write absurdly funny books. I mean, Graham Greene, every book of his
yeah, yeah,
is deadly serious. And yet, you read Travels with My Aunt, or they're
yeah,
so funny, you just crack up. So again, it's that double, as you quite rightly said, it's two sides of that coin. You have the really sad or serious side, and then you have the funny side, and the two are absolutely pasted together.
yeah,
Evelyn Waugh, same thing. They're very serious books, but if you read them the first time round, you think, these are just plain silly. They're funny, they're silly. But Brideshead Revisited, one of the greatest novels, possibly the greatest novel ever written in my small canon of reading, or of the books I have read. It's one of those greats up there. No?
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
to
know
me,
whether you,
that's one of the beauty of language in general. How language, the use of language, is not merely putting an idea into words, but you can have subtle meanings inside what you say.
absolutely,
That is,
absolutely.
and I think
I
that's in
always
every
say,
language, Sinhalese or Tamil or English.
yes, yes. Every writing has a music, and one of the jobs as a writer is to recognize your particular music in that language and,
Yeah,
and play to it. Do you know? So all these writers have that music. Muriel Spark, same thing. The person I has influenced my new book, which is by the way this
yeah.
Hot Butter Cuttlefish, is
Not this, is
R.K.
it? Not
Ah,
this.
you got it. Oh, is R.K. Narayan,
Yeah,
who writes so beautifully about little villages,
yeah,
village life. But he writes so humorously and so charmingly. Again, he's a writer that's completely out of fashion. I mentioned his name in India recently at a Lit Fest, and there was a collective sigh of horror. They said, "Oh my God, he's so old-fashioned." They said, "Oh my God, R.K. Narayan, that old chestnut," you know.
yeah,
But I don't care. I love his work
yeah.
because he's created this mythical village, which is wonderful. And there are people in it who are gently humorous the way he deals with them. So I wanted to recreate that in Sri Lanka. So hence this village of Kalabala in
Yeah.
the book with all these characters. And it
I
struck
think
quite a
this might be a good point for you to tell us a little bit more about the hot butter cuttlefish, why you, the title, where it came from, and also a little bit about it so that those who haven't read it can still have a yearning to, oh, I must read that,
you
I've
must
read
read
all
it.
about Ashok
Well,
Ferrey. I,
well,
the
I think
moment this
first,
meeting, so I'm going to order it online or something. So
yeah,
tell us
yeah,
something about your thinking behind the book and how you,
yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's it's set during COVID. It's a comedy set during COVID. Now, those two things are it's a contradiction in terms to say COVID comedy,
yeah,
and it's a difficult feat to pull off. I don't know whether I pulled it off here or not, but I thought to myself, so many strange things happened during COVID, and I'm sure the same in all your lives, but particularly here, we were so mad for things that people were drinking not weed killer, but we were taking all sorts of odd tablets. There was miracle water, there was this, there were kasayas, there was dhammika gepania, there was all sorts of, we were so desperate, you know. And so I thought, this is actually quite funny. Our lives here was quite funny. So I thought I'd write a comedy set during COVID. And it is genuinely, I think, one of the funniest books I've written. I mean, intentionally, I've tried to go for the comedy, the comedy, the comedy. And interestingly, I didn't think this would happen because it's such a game book. It's flying off the shelves in India. In that first month, it sold 2,500 copies or something, which for a Sri Lankan writer is a lot because we don't have make much headway in India. But they love it because of the humor, I
So,
think.
just a quick interruption. Did it bother you that you are writing about a terrible disaster? So, trivializing it?
That was a great worry because you don't want to trivialize something as serious as COVID, where people died. We all know people who died. Every day you open the paper and somebody had died, and even if you didn't know them, you knew friends who knew them or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it was a terrible, terrible, terrible time. So that I've tried to bring that across as well as this. I've made COVID this mythical monster clumping down the street, this village street, and the villagers are hiding under their beds. That's the closest kind of literary comparison I got to, because it was a fearsome thing. We didn't know where it came from. We didn't know where it was going. It was just like a monster, you know? At the same time, we had fun during COVID. There were people in apartment blocks who were getting drunk. I didn't put that in the book. Having little because they were in a sort of bubble in that apartment block. They were getting drunk every night.
Yeah.
You know, up on the rooftop by their pool. So there was all that kind of stuff going on as well at the same time. You know, and then these miracle cures, etc., etc. So the book is what's called an ensemble comedy. It has 5 characters. There's the old man who is down on his luck. He's living on the last remnants of a huge coconut estate.
Is that Arthur? Is that Arthur?
That's Arthur. That's Arthur.
Okay.
Quintessential Kalusudha. Quintessential. Who still talks about Ascot in 1932 and so on, and talks about the Queen as if she's living next door and whatever. Anyway, you have to figure out whether he's a dirty old man or he's a genuine love. He falls in love with the village beauty. Arthur is, I think, 58 and she's 23. So there are shades of pedophilia here, shades of Jeffrey Epstein, shades of everything. But go figure. When you read Jane Austen, it's quite normal for a 60-year-old man to marry a young girl. It happened in Victorian times or Georgian times. One person brought the money, the other person brought the looks. And it was a marriage literally made on the pages of a Jane Austen novel. And it still exists in Sri Lanka. Two of my great-grandmothers got married at the age of 16. It was quite normal in those days, you know. So I thought it'd be interesting to have this village comedy where this goes on. And in fact, bear in mind that there's a huge dose of truth in this. These characters actually existed. So village beauty, Arthur. Then comes the most interesting character, Kamala.
Yeah.
Kamala is Kandyan from an aristocratic background, down on their luck. As she says rather bitterly, 200 years ago, this man, Arthur, would only have been allowed onto the back veranda, steps of the back veranda. He would not have been allowed inside my house. Times have changed. The Kandians were dispossessed by the Suddhas. They're down on their luck. She is now the daughter of a baker, and she ends up as a housemaid in Arthur's house. And the hugely, hugely tragic part is he doesn't recognize her. She doesn't tell him. And she's sharpening her knife metaphorically, thinking one day I will stick this knife into him because he doesn't recognize me. She in her day was the village beauty, you know, but for reason or reasons unknown, he rejected her. So there you have the kind of story, and there are a couple of other people. It is seen through the eyes of a personal trainer. No prizes for guessing who that is. But the personal trainer in this book is recovering from an unhappy marriage, settled down in the village to get away from it all, and then gets embroiled in village politics and village life.
Yeah, and
so you have
portray Malik is also very interesting. Oh.
Yes.
How you
Yeah.
describe
Yeah.
Malik's character and how he
Yeah.
thinks
Yeah.
about things.
How he sees, he is what they call an unreliable witness.
Yeah.
So he writes in the first person, I did this, I did that. But there's a third person writing also. It switches from first person to third person. So when you read the third person, you realize he's not telling you the entire truth, at least not all the time, you know? It's his version of it. So it gets complicated. But the most interesting character here is the sixth character. And the sixth character is Karma.
Yeah.
So I've made Karma a lady. I don't know why. I'll be hit on the head by all the feminists in town, probably. But Karma is a strong figure in this. Because as there's a politician called Biju, and as Biju says, beware, if you don't ride karma, if you don't ride your karma, you will find your karma riding you. So karma is a horse, or karma provides the horses for people to ride. So some of the characters use karma to their advantage. They say, well, this is what I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be a politician. I will do this, I'll do that. There's no harm in, because this is my destiny. And there are other people who say, well, what is my karma? What should I do? What should I do? And then they try and listen to it and then perhaps go in that direction. So there are people who override it and there are others who listen to it.
Yeah.
So this is essentially what the book is about. The philosophical part is, where do you lie? Where do you personally as a reader lie? Do you take karma and run with it? Or do you sit there like a Mia and listen to it and take it on the chin? What do you do?
So when you say karma is a sixth character, it's almost a virtual character, is it?
Yes, it's a metaphorical, of course, you know. But in the book, I go quite far with karma. She pops up everywhere.
Yeah.
So she's almost human. She's not human, but as a writer, you can bring her in. If the book was made into a film, I don't know what you'd do with this character, you know, because you can't, in a film, you can't graphically make her. But in a book, you can use your imagination, that there's a sort of like a ghost almost of a sixth character who wanders in and out, pulling the strings, as we talked about earlier. So,
but the way you bring out what I hope not insulting Sri Lankans, but about the gullibility of believing in the magic water and so on, you know, that's so typical of what I feel is Sri Lanka, where they always believe.
Yeah, but it also shows how desperate we were.
Yeah.
You see, I suddenly realized, my God, you know, we voted a government in, but they're no longer there to help us. We are on our own. We all were on our own. They would, you know, gas ran out. We started chopping trees down.
Yeah.
All this is from real life. Daralipa, we started cooking on a daralipa. Because there was no government to say, all right, we'll get some oil. I mean, I don't blame them, because it was a world disaster. You know, nobody knew what to do. But we in Sri Lanka were particularly desperate because we particularly felt abandoned. Do you know? So we didn't have vegetables. We didn't have eggs. And I personally we had 2 dogs, 2 cats to feed. We had 2 stray dogs we were trying to feed at the same time, you know, and then to say nothing of the household.
Yeah.
So
there's something I want to ask you, which I think you have spoken, but may not be directly. But when you start writing a book, you know, do you have a kind of rough idea what it's going to be like, or do you just have an idea which then develops as it goes on? So you're not really quite sure how the story is going to develop, and it all happens and then suddenly an end? Or do you have a kind of synopsis in your mind that this is the broad idea, I'm going to break it up into sections and make it a story?
A very good question, and I'm glad you brought that up. The answer is, it's a mix of the 2 things. The mathematician in me says you need to know what you're dealing with. You need to know where you're going to go. And in every one of my books, there is a mathematical abstraction at the heart of it. In some books, it's about good and evil. In the book I discussed years ago with you, The Ceaseless Chatter of Demons, it's about good and evil. The present book is about karma and free will. So there's always an abstract notion at the heart of the book, which I try and cover up, because a book would be boring if you just had that and try to deal with it. So then you coat it with the humor, you coat it with your characters, this and that. So, but at the heart, you need to know what the themes are that you're going to deal with. Right. You need to know approximately where you're going. But there is a danger if you overthink it and overplan it. Because the beauty of writing is there is a certain random quality that only comes out when you're writing it. There's a story in the first book, Competitive People, O Signor Non Sono Degno, so it has an Italian title, where the last paragraph changed as I wrote it. And the whole story changed. And I thought, my God, what have I done? It was like committing murder, you know? So therein lies that random beauty that comes out of somewhere in you. And you need to keep your subconscious open to that possibility. It doesn't happen all the time. So the closest I can say is to tell you that you need to get from Colombo to Kandy, but you don't know whether you're going to take a train or a bus, or whether you will have to get down at Kagol and take a bus at that point, or take a tuk at the end, you know? So you don't know how you're going to get there, but you have a very general idea that you do have to get from Colombo to Kandy in this book. So it's as I said, a mixture of both. Planning, a rough plan, but don't plan too much, because then the book becomes very stylized, very forced, very artificial. You need to leave yourself open to the possibility of taking a side role. But I do think also you need to have an idea of what the resolution of the book is going to be.
Right.
Not completely, but approximately where the resolution of the book is going to be.
So have a kind of rough goal or direction that you have in mind, but be open to changes as you go along the road.
As you go. Sometimes other characters take over. Now in the Ceaseless Chatter of Demons, there's the devil. And the devil took over the entire bloody book and wasn't meant to, you know? I think I mentioned this last time. I sent it to my agent. I said, there's this character. I can chop him out if you want. And she said, what nonsense, he's the best character in the book. We're going to leave him there. So you need to allow that sort of random quality or random characters to come in and out of the book. You never know where it'll go. And that openness is what makes a book beautiful. Because you are essentially, as an author, you have to wrong foot your reader. That's the one thing you have to do. And that's one of the troubles with AI writing a book. AI will never wrong foot its reader because it's relying on your past work, on the past works of 1,000, 20,000 authors. I recently had to judge a short story competition, and I was thrilled that the young people who wrote, they were all in their 20s, how well they wrote their English. And my fellow judge, an author called Lal Madhavatagedar, said, don't be a fool. They've all used AI. That's why the standard of English is so high. But we chose three authors, three winners, before I knew what this was about. And all three winners had a quirky, offbeat attitude to the story. And the other stories, there were like over 100, there were like, I think, 126 entries or something. The over 100 entries seemed so generic after a while. And then I thought, so that's what AI produces, something slightly generic. They were all different. One was even Japanese, one was, but there was a generic quality to the writing. So it's a very dangerous tool to use. But again, I'm straying off the subject, so sorry.
No, that's very relevant to our discussion. I was going to ask you, when you set on the journey, do you know when you have actually arrived? I heard writers say that one of the difficult things they have is knowing when to stop, going back and changing things or editing or making small changes. Just like when you're drawing a picture, you keep adding things and you look back and come next day, you say, oh, I should have put a bit of shade in there. And you never know when to stop it. Stop, that's enough now, stop. Do you have
again, a very good question. The truth of the matter is, I never read my books once they're published. I've never read them. I would be distraught because I would think, oh my God, this is wrong. Take this out, put this here. So in other words, you as an author will never stop tinkering with your story. It is your baby. The baby is growing under your eyes.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I'm a lazy bugger. Once, as I told you earlier on, I do the first draft longhand, I correct it longhand. Then the third draft goes on the computer.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I get kind of bored. I think, okay, enough. So there may be 3 more drafts, but that's it. It then goes out. I send it off to the agent, and then of course there is a sixth or seventh draft when your agent or your publisher says do this, do this, do this. You know, your editor rather in the publishing house. But the truth is, it's that mathematical thing. If you have 20 foot to cross in a room, you do 10 foot, and then you do 5, and then you do 2.5, and then you do 1 3/4. You know, you go half the distance each time. Mathematically, you will never reach the end of the room. But you're getting quite far. You know? So I think a book is a bit like that. The more you edit, it's getting better and better. But at a certain point, you do have to stop, because with a book, there's a risk that it will read wrong. It will read as if it's overcooked.
Mm-hmm.
There is such a thing as over stylizing, over editing. There has to be a raw, fresh, quirky feel to the book. And that freshness goes with every edit. So while the English may improve, the spelling may improve, if you do radical editing, the quirkiness will go.
Right.
Which is why somebody asked me very recently, I think at a workshop I did 2 days ago, how many people do you show it to before you send it off to your agent? And the answer is nobody.
Uh-huh.
And they were all shocked, because most writers have been told, show it to your wife, show it to your husband, show it to your daughter, show it to somebody close by, show it to your group of friends. So I told them a funny story. When I wrote Call Pretty People, my 2 closest friends live in England. They grew up. One of them is Ferrey, and the other one is somebody called Mark Green. They grew up with me in boarding school, and they went to Oxford with me, etc. I brought the manuscript to London. Each of them, I printed out a copy and gave each of them a copy. This was in the year 2002 or something like that. So over 20 years ago. Right. Do you know, neither of them has made a single comment ever since.
Really? Oh.
25 years almost have gone past. They have not commented on it. You can imagine how gutted I felt. Your best friends don't even bother to comment on it, which obviously means it was so bad that they kept tactfully quiet. So that is a good lesson to me. You know, just be courageous. Do it yourself. Edit it yourself. Send it out.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, don't rely too much. If you have a loved one at home who will willingly read your book and not have to have a gun pointed at her head in order to get some comment out of her, you know, give it to them by all means. But don't be surprised if they don't like it. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it's such a subjective thing. So subjective, you know. Yeah. What you like, your best friend will hate. So don't listen to them.
So underline that there is a message to me that you must never lose faith in your ability and to deliver something that you started to.
Yeah, don't lose faith in yourself. It takes a lot to have faith in yourself, but you do have to have and stick to it. Of course, there is the proviso here. You print the book, your agent prints or your publisher prints 1,000 books, and only 20 of them sell. Then you have to be realistic and think, okay, maybe one book is enough. Maybe I'm ahead of my time. Maybe in 50 years, people will pick up this book and think, oh my God, this man was a genius. Console yourself with that, but stop writing, you know? So it's a bit of both. You have to be fearless and put yourself on the page, send it out.
Yeah. Very good.
If the agents refuse you, that doesn't mean your writing is bad. Agents are very subjective, and that quite often agents are up their own arse about this sort of thing, you know? So don't listen, you know, send it out. So this is a point I want to make to you guys in England. Consider, if you have a manuscript, consider publishing it in Sri Lanka. Uh-huh. It's much cheaper to publish it here for a start. And there's Sam and Amina Pereira Hussein, who do a very good job. There's Muller, Carl Muller's son, not Jonathan, what's his name? Jeremy Muller. He will publish. Or you can go to Sarasavi, or you can go to Vijayapa. Maybe not Vijayapa anymore. He used to publish in the old days. I think he still does. Anyway, there's a whole range of options here. So
that's good advice. That's good advice.
Maybe the answer is to self-publish here. It's finicky. You'll have to do a lot of the work yourself because we don't have anything like an editor here. You'll have to do your own editing, your own proofreading, because most of us are Sinhala speakers, even though we work in English-speaking jobs. So you cannot rely on people here to edit your work properly. Do it yourself. Actually, in that instance, I think Jeremy edits, and so does Sam and Amina. So those are the exceptions. But the big bookshops, you pretty much have to do it yourself. But consider that and put it out here. Who knows? That book may be the next call to people. You know, it's a
So
it's
when
a
does the transition occur? Because as far as I know, you can approach a publisher and get it published, but you might have to pay for 20 copies or 50 copies or whatever it is. But when do you know whether this now has turned into a bestseller and is now
yeah.
marketable?
So almost all of them, unless they really, really, really like your script, will say it has to be vanity publishing. You have to put up the money for the first 1,000 copies. Mostly in general, they will not do less than 1,000 copies. I remember when begging Sam and Amina, I said, please just do 200 copies. They said, are you crazy? This is not a charity. We'll put out 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
Well, the 1,000 copies vanished in 4 weeks. So the thing is, you never know till you put it out. So you have to bite the bullet and find the money for those 1,000 copies. And it's not that expensive. I couldn't tell you real figures because now I get properly published by Penguin India, so I don't deal with all that. But when in the days that I did, I realized the more copies you print, the cheaper it becomes. I remember The Good Little Ceylonese Girl was 85 rupees a copy or some absurdly small amount.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Because I bit the bullet and did, I think, 3,000 copies. By then, I knew I had an audience. I knew that those 3,000 copies would go.
Yeah.
But as a starter writer, if it's poetry, just do 500 copies. If it's prose, do 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
Put it
Yeah,
up.
the
Now,
cost decreases exponentially, doesn't it?
exactly. It's an exponential decrease in cost. So it's almost as cheap to do 1,000 as it is to do 500. So you might as well do 1,000.
Before I open up to questions, I just like to ask you this: when you know, you usually use towns and so on. This is the first time you seem to use the village as a topic. Why? Second one is the village Kalabala. Is it something totally imaginary, or did you have a place in mind? And also, the characters, are they all completely fictitious, semi-fictitious? Do they actually exist under different names? And you have,
Oh, you are now putting me on a difficult spot. But actually, it's yes, yes, yes to all those questions in the sense that I chose a village because everyone says, oh, you write about inner city humor or inner city. What is the word? Not sarcasm. What's the word? I can't think of the word at the moment. Humor-based social satire.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time in this village and I realized that it's the same there. It's exactly the same. People are just as bitchy and backbiting and as in the rest of Colombo. I mean, we are all the same, essentially. That's what I'm saying. So it was nice. And I had this example of R.K. Narayan with his Malgudi.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, what a lovely place to write, to set a novel. And he set several novels. And interestingly, one of the big Indian papers, the book is doing very well in India, I think I told you. And I think it is the Hindu or the Hindustan Times. One of them said, we hope he will set his next novel in this village. So I thought, yes, that's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to create a bunch of characters and have this village life that remains in your mind and then you want to go back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. As the characters, the protagonists are definitely, they do exist. They do, trust me. So anyone who says, oh, these characters couldn't possibly be, they're absurd, I can't believe them, they're not credible. Wrong. They exist.
Yeah.
They really do exist. So
how many politicians have you antagonized? Because your portrait of politician is usually a chap who's
well,
after
hopefully none,
self-interest, money.
because I'm banking on the fact that politicians don't read books.
Yeah.
So that's a well-known fact. It's a fact well known. So I hope I'm okay. But also, that's another interesting thing. The politician in the book, Biju, you'd be surprised how many people have come up to me and said, and in a nice way, oh, I think he's such a lovable character. Go figure. He wasn't meant to be lovable, but obviously he's become lovable. Actually, about 4 or 5 different people have said to me, oh, that's my favorite character. He's so lovable because he has a vulnerable side. He's secretly in love with his cousin, but he's made this very grand marriage to a Canadian princess, whatever, you know. So he's a tortured soul in that, although he's quite wicked at the same time. Anyway, that's
Yeah. Is there anything autobiographical in your novel? I mean, there is a personal trainer.
the personal trainer. Not really. There is, in the sense that I wanted to examine the character of a personal trainer, and that comes across loud and clear. So I say, for instance, that most of my trainees come as much for the physical part as the mental part. So I over my 20 years of doing this, I have trained a lot of ambassadors, for instance, foreign ambassadors, who come because they're able to talk about things that they can't talk about at home. Because they're too sensitive. Do you know? So they come because they can, it's like a confessional. If you're a Christian or if you're a Catholic, you know what a confessional, going to confession. So I'm like a father confessor often.
Right.
Then you have people who come. I have a young lady who comes who I trained her husband years ago. And there's a very, very messy divorce. And she talks about the whole thing. But it's in a good way. I mean, like I try and help whatever way I can. I mean, it's not help is the wrong word. I try and talk about it. So you are as much an analyst or psychiatrist is too grand a word, but you're there to help. Do you know?
I understand. Okay, other thing I want to ask you is your target audience mainly Sri Lankans anywhere in the world? Because you use words without explanation, which Sri Lankans will understand, like what, kade, kariya, mahatta, vesi, all that. We know that, but sometimes when I read books which are written by another language, they have a little addendum explaining what those words are.
Yeah, this is a huge debate, and I was advised many, many times, put a little index at the back, a glossary, and put those words down. I didn't want to do it because then the reader gets into the habit of having to refer to the back each time. So you lose the flow of the words, you lose the music of the prose. Do you know? I want them to read it, and hopefully they'll get a rough idea of what that means. And I've tried to be cunning and try to explain it a paragraph later, or try to put it into context a paragraph later. But if they lose it, well, that's also okay. I think. Sometimes in these novels, now after 25 years of writing, I think I sometimes make jokes that only I will know. But I'm quite happy with that. It doesn't matter. Also, I think with a foreigner, I would imagine 70% of my readership is Sri Lankan. And like and diasporic all over. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, whatever, wherever,
You're right.
They will understand.
If some people put a superscript down at the bottom, that takes the flow away from your reading.
Exactly. And I don't want that. Also, there's something slightly nice. If a reader figures it out themselves, they don't know what the word means, but they figure it out. There's a certain sense of victory, a certain sense of achievement in the reader. If you explain too much, it's as if you're talking down to the reader. The Mahatta, when Kamala says Mahatta, it's kind of obvious what Mahatta is because it's a term of respect. Do you know?
What about Vesi?
Yes, Vesi. Yeah. So I'm hoping that will be obvious. I don't know.
I mean, there are many areas where we could read from, but there's one particular thing which I liked. I'll just read that. It's your sort of humor. When he's from Serendipity, okay. One when one particularly buxom matron asked why on earth she shouldn't sit on the ebony sofa, Surangani replied sweetly, "Because, madam, you're fat." And she said, "How dare you? I'm not fat." And Surangani said thoughtfully, "I suppose you're not. You're enormous." So I thought that was very funny.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you the story behind that story.
Yeah.
It happened to a very good friend of mine. She's a lovely lady. She went to the doctor because she wanted to lose weight.
Yeah.
And the doctor said, "Madam," and then she said, "Oh, doctor, I think I'm fat." He said, "Madam, you're not fat. You're enormous." I thought, such a lovely line. And this is a doctor telling his patient. I don't think he would get away with it today. It happened about 20 years ago.
No, but you're very fond of that starting a sentence and giving the impression of something that you end up with a contradiction.
Yeah.
But I like
that's
that. Yeah.
I think that's what AI can't do, you see. This is I think, AI will go down the route that you think it's going to go. It doesn't do that very sharp right turn. So
No, but that type of humor appeals to me when you're led in a certain path and you're expecting, and then the punchline is totally different from what you
it's completely different.
Yeah, you're very fond of that. I put many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ashok, before we come to Q&A, I just want to thank you for appearing
Oh, not at all.
for the
Absolutely my
second
pleasure.
time, and hopefully not for the last time. It was really fascinating to hear your life story and your attitude.
Oh,
your
thank you.
enthusiasm,
Thank you. Yeah.
and the tips you gave about writing for budding novelists. Hopefully it won't be long before we get a few more people appear from SLS.
Yes, right. I have this strange theory that actually Sri Lankans are hugely talented.
Yeah.
Massively.
Yeah.
And again, that's allied to the madness at the same time. So I think every one of us needs to put pen to paper at least once and then test the water.
Yeah.
See.
Okay. So what I would like now is for people to, if they don't mind, putting on their videos and sound. And in the SLS, we have a traditional way of thanking the speaker, and that is to show our faces, ideally with a grin on it. But if you don't feel like grin, and then put your hands
put
together.
my glasses on and observe you all.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please
I
show your
recognize.
appreciation to Ashok, Suresh, what do you want to call him?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, after that, I'm going to open up for questions. Okay, so let me look at the chat box and see whether there are people who ask something here. Ronald wants to know, with a degree from Oxford in mathematics, why did you go into construction when you had many other options? You have partially answered that, but would you like to?
Yeah, the real answer is I didn't have the options because I didn't have a visa to work in England or to stay in England. So I worked on a building site because that was the only place that would employ me without having a visa. As simple as that.
Oh, I see.
So there was this random aspect to the whole thing.
So a very pragmatic decision.
Yeah, well, or maybe the decision wasn't mine to take. Maybe somebody up there said, "This man shall be a builder's laborer," actually, for those 8 years, and then move on. Maybe.
Okay.
That's the answer to that.
Thank you. Now, Savitri is asking, how do you keep your sanity in this rushing and mad island? That's addressed to you, I suppose.
Very good question. Very good question. So I live in this rackety old house where once I close the gate, there are loads of trees and birds, and we even had a python in here for ages once. So it's kind of a little haven. But every once in a while, I forget myself and go out during rush hour or school hour, and I think, my God, the nightmare out there, I did it for years. I drove the children to school and back, and now I'm past all that. I'm not sure I could do it again.
How old are your children now?
Oh, my son is 36. I think my daughter will be 30 this year.
Oh gosh.
So big kids, no longer kids.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, one last question before I go to the audience who have raised their hands. Lalit Chandrakanta wants to know, regarding publishing in Sri Lanka, the number of English readers are very limited. So, in other words, is your audience
actually,
big enough to limit
the funny thing is, I think they're limited, but in a way that's kind of good because it's like a test market for you. Do you know?
Yeah.
I agree that, I mean, it will be lovely to be published abroad. To console you, I will say that in 25 years of writing, I still haven't managed to get myself a Western publisher. I'm still with Penguin India. That's as far as I go. And so I have an Indian readership, and to a much smaller extent in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a worldwide readership.
Right.
People come here and buy armfuls of books and take them back.
Yeah.
You know? So they don't exist. And this time around with the new book, they've made it available on Amazon UK.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Or there are some other one or two other places, but that's about it.
Right.
So you're right, the readership is small. But
Yeah.
there's something quite good about that. If you're a novice writer,
Yeah.
you can check the market out and see whether you have an audience,
Right.
whether your book catches fire or not.
Right.
Mahendra, can I just ask a question related to the same, related to the question I asked about the Sri Lankan, the readership? Just a follow-up question related to that. So, because now there is a Kindle, self-publication. So, what prevents you from publishing on Kindle self-publication? Because there is quite a big audience.
Yes,
the
and
big
also
readership.
now you can put it out there online or whatever, particularly if it's short stories or whatever. There's nothing to stop you doing that. I think it's a kind of personal validation. There is nothing like picking up a book and seeing your name in print. Call it vanity if you like. I don't think it's vanity either. It's a sort of validation of your creation. And it works for nonfiction. It could be a thesis. It could be whatever. There's something beautiful about print.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. I mean, my books do sell on Kindle and so on, but I don't take great pleasure in that. But then that's just me. You know, I realize that's the way the world is going, and it's certainly much easier to buy a book on Kindle and read it on Kindle. I still like the book. I'm kind of old-fashioned and whatever, and I like smelling a book, opening a book, and then reading halfway and thinking, there's only another half to go, and then judging where the story is at that point. So anyway, that's a rather unsatisfactory answer to your question.
Yes,
Sorry.
Ashok, there's a medical condition called anosmia.
Yeah.
I feel so sorry for them because they can't smell the book, you know. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Lalit. Now, Kavan, you are the one to raise your hands first, and after that, Ajanta. Or Kavan, go ahead.
My question is, since you have sold both on Kindle and published, do you see your readership going down in print paper compared to how many sales you are getting on Kindle over time? Because as far as perception is that the younger generation rarely takes a book up and reads it, and they read it on Kindle or don't read it at all.
Actually, when Penguin sends me the royalty statements, there are very few Kindle sales. It's all print. So I don't know. Either that means my audience is older than a certain age or ancient, or those figures are a bit wrong, or maybe still people prefer. I think you're right in one thing, though, that young people don't read at all, full stop. Do you know? So it's quite a struggle for authors to get younger readers. But apart from that, from the people who read, I think we're still in that stage where people read books, or they like to read books, and they will read the Kindle version for convenience's sake. But ultimately, I could be wrong here, but judging by my figures, I seem to think that the readership wants books.
Your books are not on audio books, are they? No.
No, every year I sign the contract for Penguin to bring out the audiobooks. They never bother.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a funny story. I wrote back to them. I said, please, could I read my own books? Because I do a lot of reading for other people here, voiceovers, this, that, and the other. And they said, certainly not. They said, we have professional readers. So I said, yes, but these are Sri Lankan jokes. This is Sri Lankan humor, Sri Lankan pronunciation. They said, well, we don't care. We have professional readers. So then finally I said, look, I'll fly myself to Delhi. I'll put myself up for 6 days. Please let me record my own books. Then they said, oh, well, if you must do it like that. you know, do it if you must. But they haven't come back to me after that. So
You have not done any. You have not done any.
no, there are no audio books, very sadly, very sadly.
Okay, Kavan, can we move on to Ajanta
Yes.
Rasika?
Hi, Ashok.
Hi.
It's me. I'm trying to say that I was there from the start, but in my emails, you were wanting. You said you'd be gutted if you don't make it.
Yeah. So you did make it. Very
I'm
good.
trying
Thank
to
you.
mark my.
I am honored. I am honored. Thank you.
And also, I said my husband calls me a professional grandmother, and I was actually babysitting. So with the little one, I was listening right through because she was asleep. So wonderful presentation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I have also bought the book, but I haven't finished it. Just a few comments I want to make, Ashok. I mean, firstly, so lovely to meet up again, and glad you remembered us from the COVID times
absolutely.
that we did. So you were making a comment about people who, there's a lot of Sri Lankan authors coming out now, mainly expats, as you say, like Naima Munapira and Vivi Ganeshalingam, and award-winning authors who are based overseas, but they're drawing from their memories and experience of the motherland, and it's very nostalgic reading those, and they've done well. But it's not just the Sri Lankans who are overseas in the West mainly, but there's other countries as well who are doing the same thing, authors from other countries like the Philippines and mainly the Asian countries. Now, you had rave reviews from authors like Sir Alexander McCall Smith for this book. And I remember he came to the Goa Lit Festival. Obviously, this year there wasn't one, but last year. And you haven't been there for a while, Ashok.
Yeah. I was banned one year. I was banned.
I don't anymore. But he gave an interview there, and he said, the readers get into these roles so much that, because he wrote his series on Botswana, based in Botswana, and his character was a female one. So actually, the readers assumed him to be a female. Have you written any cross-gender work?
Yes. Serendipity has a character, Pumi, and much of the novel is seen through her eyes. In my novel Serendipity, my first novel Serendipity.
Okay.
But apart from that, I'm just trying to think. There's some short stories. Not Unmarriageable, not Ceaseless Chatter. No, you're right. I should attempt one, perhaps. It's always kind of nerve-wracking, a little bit nerve-wracking, because you want to get it right. And there is this thing about appropriation nowadays, So if you write in the voice of somebody of another race or another religion, you can be accused of appropriating their culture. So there's a little bit of worry there. But no, you're right. That's a good piece of advice. Maybe the next book.
Now, just a word about self-publishing. You were so very encouraging, Ashok. But I've been there. I have only published one bilingual book of poetry in 2010. And I did it with Vijayapa. I struggled so very much. And as you said, there is basically no editing, even in the Sinhala bit. It was the English part of it. My daughter did most of it. And consequently, she's now a publisher. She's working for Hodder.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it inspired her to take on publishing as a career. But and even recently, as in last year, I visited Sarasavi. I won't go to Vijayapa again. I visited Sarasavi and explored the costs and about self-publishing. They were not that encouraging, simply because, I mean, for you, it must be different, but, somebody like me from the unknown, they're saying right now when the country is facing economic crisis, you can't, people don't want to be buying books, as it were, novels, poetry, mainly.
I don't think that's true. I think people are still buying a lot of books. Whoever you met obviously woke up in a bad mood that day or whatever. But you have to remember, this is Sri Lanka. You must take everything with a large pinch of salt and carry on and do what you have to do. Do you know? So do go ahead. I do also have to say that poetry, difficult to sell.
Yeah.
I think you're doing well if you sell 500 copies of poetry here in Sri Lanka. But that's the same the world over. So it's not just here. But here I know, speaking from the experience of my.
And that's sold out anyway. But they put it out on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm now aged, and I don't want to embark on another adventure if it's going to take, much of time, basically. Well, I think that's all I have to say. But like I said, thank you both, Mahendra especially, for
yes, absolutely
stepping into this role. I felt I'd left him in the lurch a little.
Are there any other questions? I said,
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm Roshan here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, Roshan. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ashok, for that, I think, a very candid and very humorous presentation. I mean, your wit, it kind of, I sometimes think you're this mathematician hiding behind this cloak and, kind of having a good laugh at all these readers who pass by.
No. Trust me. You laugh with me. I don't laugh at you.
With you, yes.
You can laugh at me. You can laugh at me.
Wit. But what intrigues me is that you still call yourself an indifferent mathematician.
I was.
All delivery, mathematics played so much a part of the underpinning, the elegance of mathematics ran through whatever you do, I think, because both mathematics and creativity, aren't they sort of, from between order and chaos?
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way, you are, I think, as a writer, you're having so much fun at the edge of chaos. Would I say that?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And it's a humorous. It was a humorous tagline. Yes, so it's much more humorous to say I'm an indifferent mathematician. Maybe I should say I'm a different mathematician. But
I mean, are you being sort of, I know it's your brand of humor. I was going to ask you that. Is it this brand of humor and wit, or self-deprecating at times, I think? Or is it that you're being very, very humble? And is it humility that you do not accept that,
No, I think we all have to be realistic about our achievements, and it's very easy to become so up our own backside with our achievements. So the first thing is you always have to go back to zero. And listen to my TED talk if it's out there on the internet. But I keep talking about this. To be any great achiever of anything in life, you have to go back to zero each time and start afresh. So when you're a writer, you have to imagine that you know nothing about writing and just learn your way up. You can't say, I know this, I know that, I've read this, that's not how it works. So it's the same thing with anything, I think, So I think indifferent mathematician is a fair comment.
Yeah, so I was just thinking to myself, perhaps, one has to be gifted if one is to enter Christchurch. So there is that mathematician, I think.
Yeah, but to every, but the point is that to every, I mean, I perhaps think of myself as a good-ish mathematician. There are 1,000 others who are so much cleverer. Do you know? So any writer is the same thing. You may think you're a good writer, but there are hundreds of better writers than one. So I think that's the only lesson we all have to carry with us.
It's sort of, okay, this is, and I was just asking myself, is it an escapism, not from the mathematical order, but maybe the order of your early education, your Benedictine education? Because, I mean,
no, not escapism, but you see an open door and you walk through it. You don't necessarily walk through it because you didn't want what you left behind, but because you wanted to see what was in the new place, in the new room. Escapism seems to presuppose that you're escaping from some vile circumstance, and it was never that. It's just that you walked through that other random door and found another world out there. Then you walked through another door and found another world. I think that's all it was.
Or not to defy expectations. Like you said, your mother, when she introduces your older brother, and then she...
Yeah. No.
So was it like, just...
No, nothing was done on purpose. That's the trouble with me. It's all random. So I'm sorry to say.
It's interesting, but hugely witty. And I'm yet to read your latest offering.
Oh, thank you. Yes, good luck with that. Yeah, it's a funny book. It's a funny book. Yeah.
Ashok, is your show, Ashok Ferrey show, still on, or?
No, very sadly, no. I think there are still episodes that I add now and then because suddenly I get somebody smiling at me in the street and then I think, the show must be on. Now what's happened to me is I have become the statutory old man of Sri Lankan advertising. Whenever they need an old man, they call me because I'm one of those few old men who doesn't dye their hair. So when they need a gray-haired man, they call. At the moment, I'm currently filming something, and I'm the father of it's a girl heroine, and I'm her father. And so again, they've chosen me because I'm this old man who comes on, the old wise man at the end, and who explains the film to everyone. So
it's available on YouTube. Ashok Ferrey show?
Yes. I think there are episodes on YouTube, or there's something on YouTube. I never go on it, but I'm pretty sure there must be clips of it at least, or whatever. Just check it out. Yeah.
One thing you didn't mention because you are too modest is that even in building architecture, you have won an award for a building that you...
I didn't win. I was nominated. So I was one of 5 nominees. Right. But that was good enough for me because I'm still the only non-architect ever to have got there. Yeah. So that, of course, as a result, the architects hate me. Yeah, because we're very territorial here about our different things. So you don't want, the last thing architects want is a non-architect to be nominated for an architectural prize. So thank God I didn't win. I probably wouldn't be alive today if I'd won. They would have, shot me in the street.
I'll ask you a question. This is not directed at you personally, but what makes people write books? I can think of people who write books because they think there's money in it, because if you are a successful author, you can make lots of money. That is one. Other one is fame. If you are recognized as a famous author, that brings you fame. Thirdly, just the fact that sharing your ideas, thoughts with people gives you a satisfaction. So you're not doing it because you want to be a famous author or because of money or fame. Just that, look, I'm good at writing. I want to share it to other people. That's the only motivation. Is that possible?
Yes, of those 3 things. First of all, you have to be an idiot if you think you're going to make money on your books. Yeah. Nobody makes money. Unless you're Harry Potter, unless you're, what's her name? You don't make money on your books. Yeah. Even really best-selling authors generally have a day job. They're lecturers at universities, they're this, they're that. You only give that up when you really hit the big time. And that maybe happens to one author in every 20,000 authors. So that's a very, very small thing. So you don't do it for the money. The other 2 are very valid. You do it because you want to be read. You feel you have something to say and you love it when there's a resonance between you and some random person on the street. I had a gig on a luxury liner once where I had to lecture them on Sri Lankan art, architecture, literature, whatever. All these ditzy American millionaires on board this massively expensive cruise coming from Hong Kong through Sri Lanka going off to Greece. Anyway, a lady from Vietnam came running up to me with one of my books and said, I think it was called Pity People. She was a naturalized American, but she had grown up in Saigon, married to an American billionaire. She said, "You have written about my life in Saigon," she said. "I love you for having done that." And I thought, yippee, if I, writing about Colombo, have resonance with somebody from Saigon living in America, well, I've done my job, you know? That's the beauty of words. You never know where your arrow hits home. So you write, essentially, the answer to your question is yes, you write because you want people to read your books, and there's a certain satisfaction in knowing that you have a readership. Yeah, satisfaction, there's no other word for it. It's not fame. The fame may come, but that's not the be all and the end all. It's that satisfaction.
Is it fulfillment? Fulfillment?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is fulfillment. It's a feeling that you know, you had something worthwhile to offer. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand what you mean. Yes, I was also going to ask you about, it's totally hypothetical. If you didn't get down to writing, how would your artistic instincts and talents be directed to? Would you be building stuff which is really architecturally brilliant and aesthetically fantastic?
I'll be building buildings that fall down, that's for sure. But no, architecture is one area that I would have gone into. I also draw. So in that very, very, very first edition of Cooperative People, Sam Pereira made me do little sketches for each story. So they're hanging up here behind me, you know, and so on. So perhaps I might have been an artist. I don't know.
Have you tried your hand at drawing at all, or?
Yes. I actually did an art O-level at school and whatever. So I do draw, but not seriously. And there again, you know, life is too short. You can't.
Yeah. Well, about making money as an author, you put it very nicely when you said, I'm using your own words. I'm ashamed to say that I make more money as a personal trainer than as a...
That's the truth. That's God's honest truth.
I don't know why you're ashamed, but still.
Yeah, writing really doesn't make money. You always, you know, would like to think that, you know, writers have this grand life flying about here, there, adoring fans, queues of people signing books. That's not the way it works. You're lucky.
Is there another book in the pipeline, or is it totally at the moment under the wraps and you can't disclose it?
No. I can tell you, I shouldn't really, because writers should be superstitious. I'm not. It's a book set in England, but it's kind of a controversial book, so I don't know whether it'll see the light of day. I'm just a little worried. You know, it's we'll see what the agent says. The Indian agents may not like it because it's set almost totally in England. England and Somalia, as I said earlier, Somalia in the 1960s.
Well, whatever you do, don't stop writing books, because your books are so readable, so enjoyable. At least I found it so. Now, before we finish, there's a question from Shihan. Shihan, go ahead. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mahendra, and thank you, Ashok.
Hi, Shahan. Hi.
I have a few questions. One is about your experiences in Africa. It's very exciting to me. Have you ever incorporated them into your books, or have you any plans for the future?
Yes. As I said, this new book coming up, which won't be around for another 2-3 years or whatever, is set in Somalia, East Africa in the 1960s. One of my short stories in Cooperative People is set in Nigeria in the 70s.
Yes.
Apart from those, no, none of the others. One of the problems is one likes to go back to a country to revisit it in order to get, because memory can be defective. But somewhere like Somalia, I've been told, don't bother. Do not go back. It is not the Somalia you knew. So it's written purely from memory. And Nigeria, even so, I'd love to go back one day to Nigeria. There again, people say, oh, don't bother. It won't be the Nigeria you knew. So it's kind of a sad thing that what your life, any of you, the life you lead now will never be replicated. You can't go back to it. Do you know? 10 years from now, You may go back to the house you lived in 10 years ago, but it's not the same house, it's not the same air, it's not the same people. Do you know? So I find that truly sad, actually.
Yes.
That what you're living through now can never be replicated. So to go back to Africa or to write an Africa story now, it has to be set in the past. It cannot be set in the present unless I go back and relive Africa now.
Yes. Another question, Mahendra, if I can.
Yeah, please do.
Have you considered writing your family history? I know you've written about your father, but perhaps changing a tack a bit. If you were to write that, is that a challenge for you? Because you're going to be mixing true facts? I mean, writing about true facts?
Yes. I hesitate to write too overtly about people I know. When it comes out in fiction. And then you realize that XYZ is a mixture of characters A, B, and C. That's okay. But to sit down and say, I'm going to write about my family, I'm going to write about my auntie, I'm going to write about my neighbor, no. And books always come from the inside to the outside, not the outside in. So it's like a house. You can't say, I'm going to build the definitive house and it'll have 2 windows on this side, 2 windows on that. You've got to design a house from the inside out. Similarly, with books, you can't say, I'm going to write the definitive book about the Civil War, for instance. You can't do that. It has to come from inside, start with 1 episode, and then it works outwards. So for that reason, the very fact that you're writing about known people means that you're restricted. And that fetters you, and it makes for bad writing. You need to start with writing about some interesting character, and later you think, oh my God, that was my auntie so-and-so. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And the other last question was very interesting. You mentioned about writers, categories. I mean, if you think of V.S. Naipaul, think of Abdul Razak Gurna, people in
Yes.
the are writing about their home country.
Yes.
In your case, it's different. You've been out in the diaspora, but returned home, so to say, and you're writing from home. So do your readers identify you with those other Nobel Prize winning writers that I mentioned?
Gosh, you're putting me in very high company. But the funny thing is that this new book, Hot Butter Cuttlefish, William Dalrymple read it, and he says it reminds him of early Naipaul, the Mystic Masseur, and the other one, I can't think of the title. I've got it written. Let me just find the comment. It was very, very interesting. V.S. Naipaul's early Caribbean novels, like The Mystic Masseur and The Suffrage of Elvira. I haven't read either of those books. I must read them because obviously there's something in there that William that resonated with William. So thank you for that. Because those are high Abdul Razak I've met many times at festivals. He's a lovely guy, absolutely. But you're right. He is married to an Irish lady, and he lives in England, or she's Irish or English. Anyway, they live in England. So I don't think he's been back either. But he sets his novels in Zanzibar and so on, Dar es Salaam. Did you grow up in Africa?
Me, I research Africa. No, I grew up in Sri Lanka, but not so much as an adult. Went to school in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Yes, but I've been reading Gurna's book recently, and I love his writing.
Yeah, they're lovely, aren't they? For me, those writers, for me, are pure escapism, because they take me back to my childhood in Africa, So for me, it's an absolute delight to step into those. But anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mahendra, can I come in?
Yes, who is that?
Sati.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't put my hand up. Very insightful information. I'm one of those, as Rasika mentioned, I'm one of those nobodies with 1,100 ideas to write, but with no skill. Where does AI come in this formula of creativity? Do you think it's going to ruin the creativity of potential writers, or do you think that's the way forward?
I'll give you a parallel example. In the 80s, the calculator came in, and I'm a mathematician. I remember going to Sainsbury's across the road from my building site, and there was a lovely girl there with purple hair, and on her name tag, it gave, I won't mention the name, it gave a Sri Lankan name. I thought, good God, you know? And anyway, I bought my pint of milk, and I gave her, so if it was, I don't know, 52p, I gave her £1.52 or something. Anyway, it was an easy subtraction to make so that she could give me back a 50p coin. But she didn't give that back. She had to work it out on her calculator. So I'm much older than her. I come from a generation that still works the maths in their head. But your younger people will always bring out their phone and work out the maths on the phone. So the moment you make life easy in maths, you made life easy for that generation, but they've also lost an art. They've lost the art of arithmetic. It's the same thing with AI. It will be the same thing, even if it isn't at the moment. You will find that in 20 years from now, people will have lost the art of writing or thinking because AI does the thinking for you. It reduces your emails to understandable bits and so on and so on and so on. So I fear for it. It's a hugely useful tool, as is the calculator. What do? We can't get rid of calculators. We all use calculators now for everything, for our mathematics. So the question is, do we then need the use of English if a machine can talk for us? And we probably don't need the use of English. But writing, creative writing, is a different thing. It's a leap of imagination. It's not just speaking. It's not just reading or speaking. It's the imagination of the writer that you get. It's the mind of the writer you're getting into. So I think it's a very, very, very dangerous tool to use. Because I'm not an online person, I'm lucky. I don't need to resort to anything. I wouldn't know how to do it. But I think it'll get you up to 70% very quickly, or 80%. The balance, 20%, it will never reach. I generally think it will not reach.
Two more.
Go ahead.
The second question, Ashok, is you mentioned the word agents. So my understanding is that you got to undertake a degree of marketing through agents for you to augment the readership. Am I right?
No, absolutely not. An agent is somebody who handles your book. They sell it to the publisher. If you're lucky, you'll have 2 or 3 publishers bidding for it. Otherwise, with this last book, I had 2 publishers going for it. But because all my other books are with Penguin, she advised me to go with Penguin. So Serendipity, I remember, I had 4 people bidding for it. So it varies from book to book. But it's not you send your baby out to the agent and they do the rest. Publishers will not deal with writers directly. They just simply won't. They'll return the manuscript. Nowadays, on the internet, there are lots of agents that will accept your manuscript. They will read it and they will tell you, okay, I'm okay to take you on. The joke, the thing that goes around all writers is that it's more difficult to get an agent than to get a publisher. It's incredibly difficult to get an agent.
So really that ties up with the question I was going to ask you, Ashok, that I think that publishing, marketing and selling can't be easy. It must be a very difficult task. So have you built up a team now with several members, or is there one person who does it for you, or have you got a team of people working for you?
I have a wonderful publicist in Penguin called Ahana Singh. And I think it's thanks to her that I've been reviewed in 5 major Indian newspapers for this new book. It hasn't happened before. It's the first time. Or it could be that I'm getting more known after 25 years of writing books. I don't know which way it is, but it's the publicist who gets you the interviews, who gets you booked into literary festivals, etc. It's impossible for an author to do it. There are some authors who are very good at it, but I find it quite like ticklish. You know, you can't. It's a terrible thing to have to put yourself forward, and you know, it's not good. It's far better if a publicist or an agent does it for you. If you self-publish, then you have to be your own publicist. But a word of advice also, never be too proud. Always do, if you're asked to do a workshop or if you're asked to do a review, do it, you know, because you are helping another author, and you never know where that interview will lead you. You just never know. So to the best of your ability, be nice to other authors.
Thank you, Ashok. Now, before I draw this to a conclusion, my last question, is there anybody in particular that you could say is the inspiration behind my success? Or is it difficult to point to one person or whatever, saying thanks to him or her,
well, there's one person I have to thank, and she's actually just in the room. She's just left. My wife, because this career would not have been absolutely. She typed out my first manuscript. Nowadays, she's given me a very good piece of advice. She says, "Don't give it to other people to read. Just send it out," and that's what I follow. But certainly, it would not have been possible because, you know, there's only room for one mad person in any household. Trust me, and that's me in this one. So
the saying that behind every successful man there's a woman is true, is it?
Yeah, absolutely true. A sane woman behind every mad person. Yeah, so.
Okay, I think we have caught up with time, and once again, thank you, Ashok, for appearing on the show.
Not at all. Thank you very much. Lovely questions. Thank you for being a good audience. Thank you for sacrificing the football to listen to me. You know, so.
Thank you very much. So can we all please join me in thanking Ashok in the usual way, which is we put our hands together.
Thank you all.
Together,
and read this book. Read this book.
And that's the book, yeah. So Ashok, thank you very much. I will send you a kind of video to look at, and if you approve of it, I will upload it to YouTube.
Upload it anyway. You don't need my approval. Just, you know.
So
okay, please go ahead. Please
enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you for coming.
You too.
Thank you again,
Take
all
care.
The best.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Bye.
Take care. Good night. Bye.
Good night. Bye.